Yeah, I think if there's a couple things I want him to take away from this experience. First, in terms of on-court stuff, the screen setting, you're
Yes.
7 foot, 280 plus pounds, level people. And that's just not on ball at the top of the key in DHOs. Set a pin down. Like, set something to just free Maxey up off ball. Set something that's free Paul George up off ball.
We saw some great ones for Steph.
Incredible ones. You are going to be spending, and again, I don't want to overstate this. He's still probably going to have a 30% usage rate. You're not going to be completely off ball, but you will be off ball at times. Level people with that screen setting. It really does make a massive difference, and it's something I think he's mostly overlooked for the majority of his career because he's so focused on what he's going to do when he eventually does get that ball. So that mindset shift, I think, will become valuable. The other thing and I guess my second thing that I really want to take away is the fact that he can spend some of this time off ball and find ways to contribute. I think at some point, if he does this successfully, we will look back a little bit towards the Olympics as the turning point. And certainly, I think that's a big one. I think it honestly started in part in the series against the Knicks when Tyrese Maxey was cooking, and I don't want to say let him, but he was happy to encourage that and take a step back and let Maxey run the show. I think here in the Olympics, he continued that and crucially maybe learned how to impact the game off ball more than he knew how to do in that series against the Knicks, and will continue to learn how to do over the course of the season. So that was my second takeaway. And also just in terms of like learning how to win, I think sometimes we can overstate this. And I think it can be overstated with the Olympics too. Like what they did here won't necessarily matter when they play the Boston Celtics in the conference finals. Like tactically, it'll be completely different. But just to come back with the confidence that he can succeed in this environment, that he can win the final game, the experience of leaving elated in a season, not just, I always go back to what JJ Redick said, not every season ends in tears, but most of the good ones do. Well, just having this experience where you're walking away on cloud nine, feeling accomplished, just having that morale boost when you're in the next defining moment of your career can become beneficial. So I think all of that is really good for him. And it was at times an up and down, Olympic run, more up towards the end than down, and certainly more up towards the end than it was at the beginning when he was really struggling. But just having that confidence that I have succeeded in these big spots, my team has won, I think it can't help but it can't not help.
I agree with both of you on everything you laid out there. For me, I'll start with the unselfishness that we eventually saw that was more crisp as the passing and all. They go hand in hand with the unselfishness. He was making skip passes that we've seen with the Sixers before that have worked. But sometimes he took a little bit too long to make those passes, seeing people cut, seeing somebody wide open. Even when we discuss having a decently good enough hot hand in that Serbia game where he decided, yes, I do have a pretty good shot here, but you know what? I'm going to set this dribble handoff for Devin Booker to come off the screen real quick. And he didn't even think about it more than a millisecond to know that that's exactly what he was going to do. He knew that. Kyle mentioned the part where he had an opportunity to do something, but he waved Devin Booker out to make it a better play overall from dissecting and IQing the game there of what was best for them in that moment for what was already working for Team USA. So for me, it's the quick decisions that I thought he made. Going back to the Serbia game when we talked about taking Jokic off the dribble from the top of the key, where he caught that ball and he was on the move downhill immediately for that two-handed dunk that it was so fast that the Serbia coach thought he traveled and he did not. It was just the fact that, as Kyle called him, he was a traffic cone, and he was a moving traffic cone because Embiid made a quick decision on that one. So if those things work, it doesn't allow the double team to come quickly. And look, I understand that he's got 4 Hall of Famers around him on the floor. That may not be the case with the 76ers. However, if he's catching it up top that way, he does have 2 other All-Stars that are going to be there on the floor with him. 2 capable shooters, at least for their positions as options in 4 and 5, and Oubre and Martin and whomever else, Gordon may be on the floor at the same time. But that quick decision is going to be helpful from the top. Number 2, while he has the best deep post position in the NBA, it doesn't hurt to do that again, especially again when you have 2 other All-Stars on the floor. Because as Kyle pointed out, he busted up their strategy immediately in the first few minutes of that second half simply because he got them in foul trouble. We know he can get Rudy Gobert in foul trouble. That's not new. Same for Victor Wembanyama. That's not new either because he is so frail. As good as he is as a defensive player, Joel Embiid is even better as an offensive player where he can exploit that to his advantage and make sure that he gets those guys in foul trouble. That will be the case for every team that they play the other 29 in the NBA. So the deep post position does, in fact, help overall. And then finally, just the way that we saw him out there playing and just the understanding of the game where he trusted people. He always trusts Tyrese Maxey. The question was he going to trust other people around Maxey that wasn't Maxey, that wasn't Harden? And it's different when you have, again, 4 Hall of Famers around him on the floor at the same time. But if he trusts his teammates, and they don't get lost in the shuffle, the 30% usage rate that Derek talks about, but they don't get lost in the shuffle of the offense, and they feel like they're involved when they do make a hard cut and they find themselves open on the baseline, and they receive that basketball knowing the big fella rewarded them for finding that way to get open. That's going to go a long way for what they're going to do for the rest of the regular season and most importantly into the playoffs, because they know that he doesn't, number one, he knows that he doesn't have to be on an island all by himself. We've seen Maxey do it. He trusts him. If he gains that trust from Paul George out there on the floor at the same time, that's going to work out. And then the others as well as they continue throughout however deep they go into the season all the way into the playoffs. That's what's going to be important for me that I took away from the things that he saw. Just quick decisions, deep post position, making those quick decisions on the jab steps. We know it works in the NBA. Guess what, man? You can do that stuff in the NBA too, where you don't have to overexert yourself. And then when you do pass the basketball, I go back to Paul George's introductory press conference of looking at Nick Nurse and simply saying, we don't want to have Joel up at the top isolating for 10 seconds of the offense. Quick decisions, make it work. Brett Brown used to talk about it all the time, but when you see it differently with other players out there on the floor, you now start to look at things and say, well, we'll go back when the season is underway. And as both of the guys here laid out, we're going to look at things that happened and just kind of recalibrate what took place in the Team USA uniform. And we're going to go back and point at the screen while we're all watching it here together like Leonardo DiCaprio in that that one photo they always show, and where he's like, we just jump up like, oh, that was from Team USA. That's what it's going to look like for him. And hopefully it slows things down for him and makes things that much easier for him when the season gets underway, because everything that Derek pointed out, everything that Kyle played out, and everything that I just pointed out, at least from our perspectives, we of course love to hear from you in the chat of the things that you liked as well. All of that stuff is going to be beneficial.
We all silly like the mayor.